I never thought I'd be the kind of person who'd risk everything for someone I worked with. But then again, I never expected my boss to crawl under my desk at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night, her breath warm against my knee as she whispered those words that would change everything. Let me go back. 6 months ago, I joined Sterling and Co. as a junior analyst. The job was decent, long hours, corporate politics, the usual. I was 27, freshly out of a relationship that had drained me, and honestly, I wasn't looking for anything. I just wanted to bury myself in spreadsheets and forget that feeling anything at all was even an option. Then I met her, Victoria Chen, Director of Operations, 34, sharp as a blade, elegant in a way that made the entire floor go quiet when she walked by. She had this presence, not loud or demanding, just undeniable. Dark hair always pulled back, minimal jewelry, eyes that seemed to read everything you weren't saying. Everyone respected her. Some feared her. I tried to stay invisible, but she noticed me anyway. It started small, a nod in the hallway, an email with a simple "good work" after I'd spent all night fixing a data model. Once she stopped by my desk to ask about a report, and I remember how her perfume lingered after she left, something subtle, expensive, and completely distracting. I told myself it meant nothing. The first real conversation happened in the break room at 9 p.m. I was making terrible coffee, half asleep, when she walked in. Most executives didn't use the regular break room, but there she was, leaning against the counter, watching me struggle with the machine. "You know that thing's been broken for weeks, right?" she said. I turned. She was smiling, barely, but it was there. "Yeah, I know. I'm just optimistic." Optimistic or desperate? Both. She laughed. It was quiet, almost like she'd surprised herself. Then she reached past me, pressed a sequence of buttons I'd never tried, and the machine hummed to life. There, desperation solved. I should have just said thank you, should have walked away. But instead, I said, "You come here often to rescue people from broken coffee machines?" She looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a second something shifted in the air between us. "Only when they look like they need it," she said softly. After that night, things changed. Not in any obvious way. We didn't suddenly become friends or start having lunch together, but there was this awareness. I'd catch her looking at me during meetings. She'd find reasons to stop by my desk. Once she stayed late reviewing a presentation I'd worked on, and when everyone else had gone home, she sat in the chair next to mine, so close I could hear her breathing. "You're better at this than you think," she'd said, her voice low. "At presentations?" "At everything." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded, and she'd left, and I'd sat there for another hour trying to understand what was happening. The problem was the rules. Company policy was crystal clear: no relationships between managers and their direct reports. And even though I technically didn't report to her, everyone knew she had influence over my career. One word from her could make me or break me. So I kept my distance, or tried to. But she made it difficult. There was this night, 3 months in, when we were both working late on a merger proposal. The office was empty except for us, the city lights glowing through the glass walls. She'd asked me to help her run numbers, and we'd ended up sitting side by side, shoulders almost touching, working in this comfortable silence. At some point, she reached for the same pen I was holding. Our fingers touched. Neither of us moved. "I should go," I whispered. "You should," she agreed, but neither of us did. We just sat there, the air thick with everything we weren't saying, until finally she pulled her hand back and cleared her throat. "Tomorrow, we'll finish this tomorrow." I left before I could do something stupid. The tension built slowly after that. Stolen glances, conversations that lasted too long, the way she'd say my name like it meant something more than just a name. I started staying later, knowing she would too, started finding excuses to ask her questions I already knew the answers to. And she played along, never crossing the line, but dancing right up to it. Then came the audit. Corporate sent a team to review our department's financials. Routine, they said, but everyone knew it wasn't. There had been whispers about irregularities, missing funds, nothing concrete, but enough to make people nervous. Victoria was the primary target. As director of operations, everything flowed through her. If something was wrong, she'd be the one who'd take the fall. I watched her handle it with the same controlled grace she handled everything, but I could see the cracks, the way her jaw tightened during meetings, the dark circles under her eyes, the way her hands would shake slightly when she thought no one was looking. I wanted to help, but what could I do? The audit dragged on for weeks. The office became tense, people whispering in corners, avoiding eye contact. Victoria became more distant, more professional. The warmth that had been building between us disappeared behind walls of corporate armor. Until that Tuesday night. I was working late again, partly because I had actual work, partly because I couldn't stop thinking about her. The floor was empty, lights dimmed except for my desk lamp. I was deep into a spreadsheet when I heard footsteps, fast, urgent. Then I heard voices from the hallway, men I didn't recognize, probably from the audit team, talking about Victoria's office. And suddenly, she was there. She didn't say anything, just looked at me with these wide, desperate eyes, and then she dropped to her knees and crawled under my desk. I froze. "Act natural," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Pretend I'm not here." Her shoulder pressed against my leg. I could feel her breathing, quick, panicked. My heart was hammering so hard I thought she could probably hear it. The footsteps got closer. I forced myself to look at my screen, to move my mouse, to act like I was just another employee burning midnight oil, but every nerve in my body was screaming awareness of her, the warmth of her body against mine, the faint sound of her breath, the impossible intimacy of this moment. Two men walked past my desk, security badges, serious faces. They glanced at me briefly, nodded, and kept walking toward Victoria's office. I didn't move, didn't breathe. She stayed perfectly still beneath my desk, her hand resting lightly on my ankle, whether for balance or comfort I couldn't tell. The men spent maybe 5 minutes in her office, then left. Their voices faded down the hallway. The elevator dinged. Silence. She still didn't move. "They're gone," I whispered. Slowly, she emerged from under the desk. Our faces were inches apart as she looked up at me from the floor. Her hair had come loose from her usual perfect arrangement. Her eyes were glassy with unshed tears. "I'm sorry," she breathed. "I didn't know where else to go." "What's happening?" She sat back on her heels, pressing her palms against her eyes. "They're building a case against me. They think I've been embezzling funds." "Have you?" "No." She looked at me then, and I saw something in her expression I'd never seen before. Fear. Raw, vulnerable fear. "But someone has, and they've been very careful to make it look like me." I should have asked more questions, should have been rational, but instead I just reached down and took her hand. "Then we'll prove it wasn't you." "We?" "Yeah, we." She squeezed my hand. "You could lose your job just for helping me." "I know. You barely know me." "I know enough." She stood up slowly, but she didn't let go of my hand. We were standing so close now, closer than we'd ever been. I could see the exact moment she stopped thinking and just felt. "This is a bad idea," she whispered. "Probably the worst I've ever had. If anyone finds out." "They won't. You don't know that." "No," I admitted, "I don't." She looked at our joined hands, then back at my face. "Why are you doing this?"
I could have lied, could have said something about justice or doing the right thing, but standing there with her hand in mine and her eyes searching my face, I couldn't. Because when I think about you losing everything, I can't breathe, I said quietly. Because I've spent 6 months trying not to feel this, and I'm tired of pretending. Because the idea of you leaving and me never knowing if we could have been something, that scares me more than any corporate policy. She drew in a sharp breath. We can't. I know. The rules. I know. It would destroy both our careers. I know. Then why? I pulled her closer. Because some things are worth the risk. For a long moment, we just stood there, the city lights painting shadows across her face. Then, slowly, she reached up and touched my cheek. I've wanted to do this for months, she whispered. Do what? This. She kissed me. It wasn't dramatic or passionate. It was soft, tentative, like she was testing whether this was real. Her lips trembled slightly against mine. My hand came up to cup her face, and she made this small sound in the back of her throat that made my chest ache. When we pulled apart, she was crying. I'm scared, she admitted. Me too. What if we can't prove my innocence? Then we'll figure it out together. What if this ruins us? What if it saves us? She laughed through her tears. You're an optimist. Or desperate, I echoed our first real conversation. Both. She kissed me again, harder this time, like she was trying to memorize the moment. Then she pulled back, wiped her eyes, and became Director Chen again. Controlled, composed, professional. Okay, she said, if we're doing this, we do it right. No one can know about us until after we clear my name. We work the case, we keep it professional and public, and we don't take unnecessary risks. Agreed. And if any point this becomes too much, it won't. You don't know that. Then I'll deal with it. She studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. Tomorrow morning, we start going through the financials. Every transaction, every approval, every signature. We find whoever's doing this. Tomorrow, I agreed. She started to leave, then turned back. For the record, I've wanted to kiss you since that night in the break room with the terrible coffee. I smiled. For the record, I've wanted you too. After she left, I sat back down at my desk. My hands were shaking. My heart was still racing. Everything had just changed, and I had no idea if we were walking towards something beautiful or something that would destroy us both. But I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to let her face this alone. The next 3 weeks were the hardest of my life. By day, we were consummate professionals, polite, distant, appropriate. But late at night, when everyone had gone home, we'd meet in empty conference rooms and go through years of financial records, looking for the thread that would unravel the truth. And slowly, we found it. A pattern in the vendor payments, invoices that matched but shouldn't have, a shell company buried 3 layers deep, and finally, a name, someone in procurement who'd been systematically routing funds through fake vendors and covering their tracks by making it look like victorious approvals. We built the case carefully, documented everything, and when we finally presented it to corporate, the evidence was undeniable. It took another 2 weeks to fully clear her name, 2 weeks of interviews, investigations, and corporate politics. But eventually, they exonerated her completely. The real embezzler was arrested, Victoria was cleared, and I was reassigned. Not fired, just moved to a different department, different floor. Company policy, they said. Too much perceived conflict of interest with Director Chen, given our collaboration during the investigation. She fought it, I knew she did, but some battles you can't win. The day I moved my things to the new floor, she came to find me. The office was empty. Friday evening, everyone eager to start their weekend. She stood in the doorway of my new workspace, and for a moment we just looked at each other. I'm sorry, she said. Don't be. This isn't fair. No, I agreed, but it's worth it. She crossed the room and kissed me, right there in the middle of the office, not caring who might see. When she pulled back, she was smiling. "Dinner?" she asked. "Tonight? As in an actual date where we don't have to hide? I thought you'd never ask." "I'm asking now." "Then yes, definitely yes." She took my hand. "We're gonna have to be careful still. People will talk. Corporate will watch us. It's gonna be complicated." "Everything worth having is complicated." "More optimism?" "More desperation," I said, "but the good kind." She laughed, and I realized I'd never get tired of that sound. We left the office that night. No more hiding, no more pretending. Just two people who risked everything for something real, walking into whatever came next. Looking back now, I understand what that night taught me. Sometimes the right choice is the one that scares you most. Sometimes you have to crawl under a desk and whisper desperate words to someone you barely know. Sometimes you have to choose between safety and truth. And sometimes the person who hides under your desk becomes the person you can't imagine living without. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.